Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Knowledge and Learning Commons. It's really a great pleasure to be here with you this afternoon, and we thank you so much for taking the time. My name is Natalie. I work here at the Knowledge and Learning Commons at the UN Library and Archives in Geneva, and we're here today to have a lot of fun, so we hope you're ready to be a part of the session. Today we're on WebEx events. If you have any questions for us, please don't hesitate to ask us in the Q&A section to the right of your screen. You'll note there that there's a chat section as well as a Q&A section, but it's best to ask us any questions in the Q&A and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. For those who are new to the Knowledge and Learning Commons, a warm welcome to you. This is our space where we're able to share knowledge informally among different areas of the UN. And we mainly like to discuss and learn informally about multilateralism and also professional development. And within this space of multilateralism, of course, sustainability is a huge part. And today's session is really to do with that. We're here again with the University of Geneva, who we've been working with for a few years now. It's a wonderful opportunity to hear from experts coming from academia. And so we're really glad to be back for a session on reinventing cities. So to prepare, I'd like to ask you to imagine your favorite city. It can be anywhere in the world. One city that you really like to visit or that you've been to and you really enjoyed. And now imagine what it might be like, what you might experience there if it was reinvented to be more sustainable and more inclusive. What would be there? What might it be like? What would you like to change in terms of neighborhoods and operations? We're here today to learn from university students around the world about this, about reinventing cities to make them more sustainable. Happening right now is a global competition called the C40, Global Competition for Reinventing Cities, where academics and students are really sharing their vision for more sustainable cities everywhere by kind of rethinking how neighborhoods are designed and planned. And so to celebrate this competition, today we have 6 groups of students who are with us who are taking part in it from the University of Geneva's Masters in Innovation, Human Development and Sustainability, as well as with students from the Universities of Bogotá, Chicago, Dakar, Patras and Reykjavik, who are all going to present to us our projects. Now, the winner of the real global competition will be announced in July this year. So today's session is a way for the students to pitch their ideas here at the Commons. So it's separate to the competition itself. But the great news is that they're going to be getting feedback from our professional jury, who I'm glad to introduce to you very soon. And once the 6 groups have presented and received feedback from the jury, both the jury and you as the audience have the chance to vote for your favorite projects. So please get your phones ready and also your notepads and pens if you want to take any notes and remember which of the projects you'd like to vote for. So without further ado, I'm very happy to introduce to you now our speakers from the student groups. They're so diverse and come from many countries of origin. So groups 1 to 3 you can see on the screen now. All of the names are the students from the groups, but also in purple you see who is going to be presenting today. So group 1 Reykjavik, we have Jenna and Israel with us who'll be presenting very soon. Group 2 is Dakar, we have Josephine joining us as presenter. Group 3 is Bogotá, Catherine is also here, welcome. Moving on to the next slide, we have groups 4, Chicago. Jingwan Ma is presenting. Athens A, so we have 2 Athens groups with us. Athens A, we have Konstantina and Anna. And finally, group 6, Athens B, Adamantia and Irene. So a big warm welcome to all of our students for being able to present today. Moving on to introduce our jury now. We're very lucky to have with us 3 professionals. We have Beatrice Ferrari, the Director of International Affairs at Canton de Genève. Gulnara Roll, Secretary to the Committee on Urban Development, Housing and Land Management at the UNECE, or the UN Economic Commission for Europe. And Edward Michaud, who's the Senior Communications Advisor at the SDG Lab, or Sustainable Development Goals Lab. So thank you so much to the jury for being here and taking your valuable experience and time to give feedback to our students. If we head on over to the next page, we're going to see the judging criteria of the jury. And as audience members, do take note as well, as you might like to use the same criteria when choosing your favorite projects. We've got 2 main criteria: presentation style, so clarity as well as the structure of the presentation, but also presentation content, so the originality of the solution, as well as its implementability in the city it's being proposed for. Okay, fantastic. So without further ado, we're going to begin. And just a kind note that before we get started, we're going to hear from two of the academic staff at UNIGE who've been really involved with the students, both Armel Choplin, who's the Associate Professor of the Department of Geography and Environment at UNIGE, and Alexandre Hejazi, who's the Director of the Global Environmental Policy Program at the University of Geneva. They've been working really hard with the students, and we're just going to hear from them for a few moments for some more context of the competition itself and their academic studies. So over to you, Alexandre. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natalie. It's a pleasure to be back at this series of events. Again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to share with within the UN and your peers the work that has been going on at the University of Geneva. There has been a very strong engagement of our university towards Agenda 2030 and SDGs through teaching and research. And this exercise that we are doing today and the presentation of students' works that have been going on for a semester long is a testimony of that engagement. And as a result of this engagement, we have set up this master that you introduced very nicely, Master in Innovation, Human Development, and Sustainability, which is highly multidisciplinary and brings to students the new capacity, analytical capacity to address the fundamental human, environmental, and institutional dimensions of sustainability and build up competencies. Today, the work that will be presented to the jury and your audience is based on a semester-long intensive work with my colleague who's next to me here in Geneva, Professor Armel Choplin, who's a teacher and professor of urban planning and geography, and also heads the Institute of Territorial Development and Governance at University of Geneva. And her involvement has been critical to mobilize resources also across the community and bring the students all together with a goal of responding to what my other colleague from International Affairs, Monica Patry, brought to us as a gift for us, the teachers, but more specifically for the students. The competition today, and I'll be very short, the C40 competition has two tracks. One track is professional and the other one is student track. And it's driven by two imperatives. One is the imperative of emission reduction, and the other one ensuring better quality of life for local communities. And that has galvanized passions among students on their projects. And on that note, I leave the mic to you and wish well for everyone.
Thank you very much, Alexandre. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. But just a gentle reminder as well for all of our audience, you get the chance to vote for your favorite project too. So we're going to be using Mentimeter for that at the end of the session. So get your phones ready next to you and we'll give you the instructions when the time's right. Okay, beginning with Group 1, Reykjavik, we have with us Israel and Jenna. Israel, over to you.
Thank you very much for an introduction, Natalie. Hello, everyone. I'm Israel, and today Jenna and I will present our project that is called Retur. Retur in Icelandic means roots, and it symbolizes the vision of a thriving neighborhood shooting roots into the future. So the neighborhood we're working with, you can see in the middle lower picture in the green dot, is situated in the eastern part of the city. It's about 20 minutes from the city center, but by car. This neighborhood was built in the 60s, so it was not thought to be done in human scale. It's designed for cars. So you can see in the upper picture, the situation right now is pleasant open spaces with those parking lots. There are no cycle paths, not enough vegetations, and no public space for leisure. But we can change that. And next slide, please. You can see on the top picture, this is our vision for the future. And we from Retur, we are proposing interventions that will include the participation of the residents. And it will not only improve the quality of life, but it will also deliver on climate goals and Agenda 2030. It will also keep Icelandic language alive and offer the residents a more sustainable way to die. Well, how we do that? This is our master plan. And we divided our interventions in three colors. Public space and mobility, you can see in blue. environment in green, and culture in purple. In the top picture on the left, you see Yggdrasil Square. Yggdrasil Square is this public space that is designed to be the new meeting center from the neighborhood. It's offering space for residents to meet and also engage in local commerce. And since we are pedestrians and cyclists are priority, and we have to deal with weather conditions in Iceland, very rainy and windy, we are suggesting the construction of a tunnel that you can see in the top and bottom right to encourage soft mobility. Other interventions like the Gerdeberg Arena, that is like an outdoor theater for the Language Museum, or the Human Compost Center, Jenna will explain for the details for you right now. Thank you. Jenna?
Sorry, thank you, Israel. Yeah, if we can maybe move on to the next slide, please. So for the environment, we propose multi-purpose greenhouses, green rooftops, and tree furniture, which will be spread all around the area. But furthermore, we suggest the implementation of a human composting center. Now, a human composting center is an innovative and eco-friendly alternative to the traditional burials or cremation. So within weeks, bodies are naturally composted into fertile soil, reducing CO2 emissions and promoting jobs within the green economy. So for the cultural parts, we suggest an open air museum. So for us Icelanders, our language is very important to us, but despite that, and despite its like 1,000-year history, preserving it has become a challenge in our modern day. So we suggest the implementation of an open air language museum, which will be a platform to teach and celebrate the Icelandic language. And its installations will include Icelandic wall paintings and poems, language exchanges, a speaking tree installation, and an outdoor theater. And here you can see on this slide, you can see our main suggestions for each cluster. And with innovative and bold ideas such as the Human Composting Center and the Outdoor Language Museum, our vision is to make Efra Breiðholt Reykjavik's hub for innovation, sustainability, and culture, designing Efra Breiðholt as a lively, welcoming, and inclusive area by strengthening its environmental and cultural roots. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Israel and Jenna. Let's head to our jury now for some feedback. We're going to begin with Beatrice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this nice presentation. I think I found it very nice, the project that you're proposing. They are quite original, a lot of different nice pieces. What I like a little bit is how you connect these different pieces. What is the role of this space within the city? Because you talk in improving life quality and the residents, but we don't know exactly who is concerned by this space. Is it people living there? Is it infrastructure for a larger public? So this connection is for me a little bit lacking, and the diagnosis that you have at the very beginning around this area. I think if you improve that part, it will get a much nicer connection between the different projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beatrice. Edward.
Thanks, Natalie, and congrats, Israel and Jenna, for your great presentation. I think building a bit on Beatrice's comments, I think, well, first of all, I want to say, hats off for the SDG branded crosswalk. I think it's SDG colors, so I think that's a nice visual. It's very bright and positive. I think for me, when you gave the presentation, and I'm going to just maybe more on the structure of it, when you talked about dying sustainably or sustainable dying, and then human composting center, that stuck with me throughout the presentation because it's such a different concept. So I don't know if you want to make that as your primary focus, because it may stay in the mind of others moving forward in the competition. So I think it's a fantastic idea. I think it's very innovative, but that concept really is strong, and I think it may dilute some of the other ideas that you're really putting forward there. For instance, the open air museum, that also is quite compelling. So just maybe there on the balance between which of the ideas you want to focus on in this very short presentation that you have. And also how to connect it to the rest of the city. I think that's something that Beatrice mentioned, maybe looking at also users, citizens. I think maybe a little bit of information on that. And you mentioned, Israel, about the winter period, and I'm just wondering, yeah, we see a lot of open air spaces. So how does that mix into a climate like Reykjavik? But overall, very, very well. I think you did a good job. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Edward. And finally, Gulnara.
Thank you very much, Natalie. I would also build on Beatrice and Edward. I would support the idea that this human composting center is really a very strong message. Reykjavik is really one of the, is considered to be one of the greenest and safest cities maybe in the world. So would you like would you like to maybe further develop that branding? I agree that it really dilutes this image of Reykjavik as a city. So maybe to really to balance and really build on the strong brand of Reykjavik as a green and safe city. My also question how culturally it's acceptable, this idea. What I would like to congratulate you about this project is that we're thinking about resilience, about climate. I think this idea of the tunnel, looking into how you can do it in winter. So I think this resilience of the city, that's definitely an important idea so that people would be able to socialize and have the public space also in the bad weather. Back to you, Natalie.
Thank you, Gulnara. Thanks a lot to the jury, Jenna and Israel. We're heading over to group 2, Dakar.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you very much.
No worries, Israel. I'm sorry about the timing. We've got to move along, but for sure we'll make sure the jury can speak with you a bit later as well after the session. Moving on to Dakar. Josephine, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you for everyone. Let me invite you to the CBD of Dakar in Senegal. Now, before we start, imagine your city center. It's hot, there's no benches, there's no shops, there's no activities, there's no fun to do. It's hard to access the area, you're stuck in traffic jam just getting here. Your business in this area is dying out, you've got no customers left. This is Dakar CBD today, also known as Le Plateau. We have a plan to revitalize this area and reconnect it. What if this ideally located zone was a place to meet? What if it was un plateau de rencontre? For this, we propose 4 interventions. On the next slide, please. First, we bring, next slide, please. Thank you. First, we bring employment, expertise, and jobs to this area. We propose creating Dakar Open Hub, an R&D and entrepreneurship hub located right at the city heart, next to l'Hôtel de Ville. And this hub will do research in partnership with the nearby universities targeting the marine ocean industry. We also propose offering mentorship and coaching programs for startups and university students within Senegal, and giving them this true incubation services needed to grow their startups and ideas into full scale. And this plateau of innovation will be a proof of concept. It will be a proof of concept of what Senegal could be, of mini plateaus of innovation that could be reproduced across Senegal within the next 5 to 10 years, making Senegal a leader in West Africa. However, to access this hub, you need a car, a train, a bike, or walking to get there. For this, we upgrade Dakar's train station, both inside and outside, as you can see on the right, with shops, toilets, free Wi-Fi. But we also provide food trucks outside because you need convenience and we need jobs and livelihood. On the next slide, please. Transport is Dakar's top polluting sector. We need to reduce emissions, we need to reduce traffic congestions and ensure enough and frequent, diverse transport options for Dakar citizens. So to make this un plateau de rencontre à la fois economic but also culturally, we propose introducing shuttle buses and electric tuk-tuks across the zone. We also propose expanding pedestrian lanes, ensuring safety for Dakar citizens commuting across the zone, incentivizing soft mobility, and ensuring that we place Senegal on the path to be a leader within low-carbon transport. For these constructions and this infrastructure we suggest, we propose using eco-construction materials. So for example, natural cooling, like bougainvillea corridors, as you see on the right, shaded pathways. We propose using shaded architecture, like in Burkina Faso, of sustainable construction materials, like Tifa and clay, that are sourced within Senegal and stimulating local businesses. This will help reduce emissions in the construction of un plateau de rencontre. With these materials, we propose making this zone a cool parcours. When I say cool parcours, I mean a place cooling the temperature, ensuring we tackle the problem of heat islands that has crippled Senegal. We use greenery, shaded areas, resilient, vegetalized walking pathways, connecting the zone together. But we also want to make this a cool place to hang out, a fun place for you to come and enjoy activities for children, kids, families. In this process, we propose open air art exhibitions, do-it-yourself mural paintings for kids and families, and drawing on Dakar's flourishing art and culture scene. If you move to the next slide, please. As you can see on our map here, these scalable interventions that we propose in the short and long term, they provide both the hard infrastructure for economic development and job creation, but it also expands green mobility across the zone. And we beautify the plateau in the process, providing participatory art. And through this, we incubate green jobs. We boost gender and kids-friendly public spaces, and we tackle air pollution heat islands across the zone. So with all these actions, the CBD of Dakar will really be reborn as both a vibrant, but especially a people-centered city center. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josephine. To begin our jury feedback now, I'll pass firstly to Edward. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie, and thank you, Josephine, for that very clear presentation. I could see already that you and your teammates, you really thought through on the communication aspect of your project, even this kind of meet me at the plateau. I think that has a nice tagline, and you could see that developing a real campaign. Also, the message that you shared towards the end of the cool parcours, I think that's also very nice. It has a dual meaning, as you said, as a cooling effect. To combat the high temperatures, and also to for people to meet, to socialize, to have fun. So I think that really came out strong on your presentation. In terms of the overall concept, I think from the SDG lens, I think you really did well in showing the integrated aspect of all the different pillars of your project. You really identified the social, the economic, the environmental challenges that the city is facing. So I think that was well articulated. And I think this message that you shared of people-centered, I think that's really strong. That speaks to the 2030 agenda. So I would encourage you to continue that. Just one thing, I don't know if many people, I don't, the CBD, I think it's a Central Business District. Maybe you may not want to use that acronym so much, because I don't know if it's common to most people. But otherwise, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Edward. Over to Gulnara. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Congratulations. Very clear, very interesting presentation. I really like the approach of very well thought through implementation. I saw in the materials information on involvement of national local governments, also about how they would interact. There is a very clear SWOT analysis, action plan, implementation plan. I especially like the focus on employment and economy, because we can design whatever great projects, unless they don't bring jobs, they don't bring economic reconstruction, especially today, after the COVID pandemics, nothing will happen. And of course, congratulations on this very integrated approach, bringing jobs, economy, resilience, public transport, public spaces. Thank you.
Thanks, Gulnara. And finally, over to Beatrice.
Thank you. I think almost everything was said already. I also very much enjoyed this presentation, very clear. I think I found a few things very smart. One is working with existing stakeholders and creating connections. For example, you mentioned the university in the neighborhood, so creating connection with existing entities outside of this area. I think CBD's area are always, we have in mind that these kind of areas that are not very made for people walking, they are made for cars, and it's hot, etc. So I found it also very smart to think about this parkour, to put some steps, interesting things on the way, which is the only way we can encourage people to actually walk or take other mobility schemes. If you don't have things interesting in the meanwhile, you won't do that. So I found that also very interesting and well thought. And the sustainability of the project, as was said by Edward and Gulnara as well, I think it's important to include these economic stakeholders, because it's making this area more lively, that you can make it also a bit more sustainable, attractive beyond the usual, the actual users of this space, to attract other people. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot, Beatrice, and thank you to Josephine for presenting Group 2, Dakar. Moving on to Group 3, which is for Bogota. Our speaker today is Catherine. Over to you.
Great, thank you, Natalie. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Great. Okay, hello, my name is Kat Huang, she, her, hers, and I'm representing Group 3. Next slide, please. So our C40 site is Plaza Mercado 7 de Agosto in Bogota, Colombia. It's an indoor market square surrounded by bike and car repair shops, collectively facing challenges of pollution, accessibility, and mobility. Worsening air and noise pollution, litter, a lack of green spaces, disorganized street parking, and poor road conditions are causing people to abandon properties here. And we've identified 6 opportunities or strategies for revitalization. First, stimulating the already productive and entrepreneurial culture of the area, utilizing the available vertical spaces, building on Bogota's thriving arts and cycling initiatives, harnessing the city's spirit of innovative tactical urbanism, driving forward the city's bold climate agenda, and lastly, reusing existing infrastructure and resources to preserve the historical and industrial character. So how do we plan to do all of this? Next slide. By transforming this 4x5 block area, the Ecobarrio 7 de Agosto will embrace 3 themes of sustainable living: productive, green, and inclusive, with short and long-term interventions that connect disparate industries to create a vibrant community. We envision an ecobarrio productivo on our top left cluster here in blue that capitalizes on the thriving productivity of the area and diversifies commercial activities. For instance, Las Colmenas, meaning beehives in Spanish, and aptly named for the dynamic, productive atmosphere of real beehives.
Oops, I believe Catherine may have frozen. Catherine, can you hear us? Perhaps not. Let's move to Group 4 while Catherine makes her way back.
She just wrote in the group chat that her computer died. She's trying to get back.
No worries. Okay, great. So let's move on to Group 4, Chicago. Sorry about that, everyone. We'll get Catherine for Group 3 back very soon. And representing Chicago is Jingwan. Jingwan, over to you.
Thank you. Sorry about Kat, but I hope she's back on track soon. So, good afternoon, everyone. It is a great pleasure for me today to present our group's work on Pershing Road Central Manufacturing District, the CMD in Chicago. As the 3rd most populous city in the US, Chicago boasts a history of manufacturing, and the CMD is one of the first planned manufacturing districts in the US, with a dozen industrial buildings built around 1918. However, a large portion of the space in the district remain underutilized, So our group decided to make a revitalizing plan for the CMD to build a cohesive, connected, and carbon-free community, with a central idea to create a place for everyone by introducing mixed functions to the buildings, housing, offices, and amenities, and also providing more convenient transportation for residents, workers, and visitors, while making the best of current buildings and resources with minimum construction and carbon emission. I will lead you through our site diagnosis briefly. And firstly, as mentioned before, a lot of space are underutilized, while the CMD is near a working class residential neighborhood. So we want to provide affordable housing programs to the district. Secondly, we want to preserve industrial characteristics of the buildings while bring about their economic potential. So we decide to develop services like manufacturing and creative industry to boost the economic and cultural dynamism. Thirdly, we noticed that the place has limited parking space, but has good access to public transit. Therefore, we plan to adopt the transit-oriented development approach. And by taking these measures, we hope to create more employment, provide better environment with less carbon emission to improve quality of life. And if we could move on to the next slide, please. We can have a closer look at our main proposals. On the top is our plan for cohesive building. We have 3 proposals. The first is to activate vacant spaces by setting up housing programs and workplaces. We divide the buildings into 2 clusters. For the buildings that belong to the city government in red frames, we welcome business incubators and companies that can provide work skill training for potential startups and workers to move in. And you may notice there is the clock tower inside. And for that, we intend to make it a landmark by inviting hotel and restaurant, which will also attract tourists. And for the private properties in the blue frames, after benchmarking on the redevelopment experience of other industrial parks, such as the 798 district in Beijing, we would like to invite artists and art institutions to the site to help create and recreate the site. And for connected community, as illustrated by the figure on the left, we can see the CMD is surrounded by multiple CTA bus routes and a railroad, although the station is a bit far from the CMD for travelers to reach. And to redress this last mile issue and encourage the use of public transit, we have three schemes targeting different types of passengers. For cyclists, we propose to add small-scale infrastructure renovation and expansion. For pedestrians, we aim to make the streets more amiable. And for those who cannot or do not want to walk, cycle, or drive, including the aged and the disabled, we propose to adjust the schedule of current bus routes. And thirdly, the idea of carbon-free can be seen from the above projects. To be more specific, we plan to have green buildings, add green spaces, promote the use of green energy and reuse and recycling behaviors to improve energy efficiency and reduce energy demand. Next slide, please. As to the viability of our plan, we have identified several stakeholders relevant and also the financial resources. For example, we have government departments, the residents, the non-for-profit organizations, and also businesses. And we are also glad to find that funding seems to be abound for our project. As we can see, multiple sources of funding from different stakeholders can be found, including from government, NPOs, and businesses. And that's all of our presentation, and thank you for your listening.
Thank you, Jingwan, for the presentation on Chicago. Certainly an interesting city. To kick off our feedback on the jury, we'll begin with Kulnara. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natalie, and thank you so much for this very clear and very important presentation. I think this presentation goes really into the heart of the urban problems. First of all, housing. I think the use of the vacant industrial buildings for affordable housing in the big cities is a huge issue. So I think you're really looking into the most important, most difficult issues, and I really congratulate you on this. The efficient use of land, utilization of the vacant spaces, application of different aspects of the circularity. You are looking into the energy efficiency, reconstruction of the existing housing, which is also a very, very important topic. And also look into the economic development in not a traditional way, but also engaging the creative industries, urban transport, and of course, congratulations on using the mapping of the stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you for the valuable comments.
Thank you, Gulnara. Over to you, Beatrice.
Yes. Thank you very much for this presentation. I found it very comprehensive. As Gulnara said, you're covering a lot of different aspects that are key, especially in a city like Chicago that has been through a lot of different cycles, economic cycles, and etc. So it's quite interesting to work on this heritage, on this kind of buildings that are there, and to look into the potential of reusing this building. And this is truly a huge challenge today, to be able to reuse the building. I think your presentation would gain with stronger if you could at the beginning not only say what you see as a potential for these buildings, but exactly placing it into the issues of a city like Chicago, so that we understand a little bit more what are the needs of a city like Chicago. What are there already many other places for creative industries, for example, that are already existing? Yes or no? Is there a need? You were mentioning the 798 in Beijing. This is a place that grew somehow organically. That's where the artists and creative people went because they were in the need for a space. Is it the case in Chicago? So it would be stronger with that kind of analysis, a stronger analysis at the very beginning, so that we know that your project can answer really needs in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, over to Edward.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. I definitely want to echo what Beatrice said in terms of the maybe being a bit more sharper at the beginning on not only, I think, the context of Chicago, but also it's a bit later in your slides, but you mentioned cohesive, connected, and carbon-free. And in the materials that we received earlier, that was nicely framed as the 3C community. And I think that type of message really could help carry people through your presentation. So we see these 3 pillars as the framework of the idea that you're bringing forward for Chicago. I also think that I really like the analysis you did up front, the problems, actions, expectations, and this kind of cascade. I think that really was very clear in terms of how you were informed by your ideas, but I think it could also be maybe just presented a little bit lighter. I think your presentation could have a bit more color, maybe some more different design. Also a bit of branding could help, so that we don't see so much just the kind of standard shapes from like a PowerPoint presentation. And then the last thing what your colleagues from Dakar did quite nicely was that we immediately were replaced there in Dakar. We see mentally us being there. So maybe try that as well for your start with Chicago, just to teleport us there, so we can picture the city and also the great ideas that you want to propose. But very nice presentation. Thank you.
Edward.
Great, thanks to our jury and Yujing Wan. So Catherine is back. And Catherine, we do understand you would like to present from the beginning, and so over to you.
Yes, great. Thank you so much. Okay.
Catherine, the sound is not great.
How about now? Does it sound okay now?
Better. Yes.
Great. Okay. Thank you for this opportunity. My computer overheated, so I'm over here with the group now. Okay, so I'm just going to start over. Thank you for the opportunity. So again, my name is Kat Huang, and I'll be presenting for Group 3. Next slide. So our C40 site is Plaza de Mercado 7 de Agosto in Bogotá, Colombia. It's an indoor market square surrounded by car and bicycle repair shops, and these collectively face challenges of pollution, mobility, and accessibility. And worsening air and noise pollution, litter, a lack of green spaces, disorganized street parking, and poor road conditions are causing people to abandon all of the properties here. So we've identified 6 strategies or opportunities for revitalization. First, stimulating the already productive and entrepreneurial culture of the area, utilizing the available vertical spaces, building on Bogotá's thriving local arts and cycling initiatives, harnessing the spirit of innovative tactical urbanism, driving forward the city's bold climate agenda, and lastly, reusing existing infrastructure and resources to preserve the historical and industrial character. So how do we plan to do this exactly? Next slide. By transforming this 4x5 block area, the Ecobarrio 7 de Agosto will embrace 3 themes of sustainable living: productive, green, and inclusive, with short and long-term interventions that will connect disparate industries into a cohesive, vibrant community. We envision an Ecobarrio Productivo, or productive, our top left cluster here, that capitalizes on the thriving productivity of the area and diversifies commercial activities. So for instance, Las Colmenas, meaning beehives in Spanish, and named for the productive, dynamic atmosphere of beehives, will adapt abandoned properties to allow residents to make a living close to home, with businesses on the ground floors and then the business owners living just above in subsidized residences. The Ecobarrio Verde, or green, on the right will incorporate greenery wherever possible, encourage healthier mobility, and power its productivity with renewable solar energy. Our Biciclario initiative will install glow-in-the-dark bike paths that run through the neighborhood for improved nighttime safety, and rundown parking lots will be converted into underground parking garages with pocket parks at the street level, offering more profitability, pedestrian mobility, and local flora. Lastly, the community will be inclusive here at the bottom in the center, building multifunctional outdoor spaces to host activities for visitors, residents, and workers of diverse backgrounds. For example, the 7 de Agosto will revitalize the barrio's wall spaces by hosting an eco-mural painting festival and competition annually. Winning artists comprising 60% women and 60% local artists will use their eco-murals to facilitate multi-generational environmental education through the creative use of eco-friendly materials such as air-cleaning photocatalytic paint or recycled bottle caps. And now, I invite you to join me on a little tour of El Ecobarrio 7 de Agosto in the year 2035. Next slide, please. We find ourselves at the new outdoor leisure space, Innova Plaza, installed by the Community Cash for Work program. Whether parking your bike at a rack made of recycled bike parts or heading to check out an eco-mural at the underground parking pocket park, a sense of local pride is felt on every street corner of this vibrant eco-neighborhood. The smell of fresh-made buñuelos emanates from the bustling fruits and vegetable market. Vallenato musicians serenade a nearby aguacate street vendor and the children reading at the outdoor mini-library. An elderly couple at wheelchair-accessible picnic tables admires the caucho sabanero trees planted by their Las Colmenas neighbors. In the evening, workers, students, and tourists take the solar panel-lit sidewalks to reach home, the nearest Transmillennial BRT station, or a nighttime Zumba class back at this very same Innova Plaza, all within a 20-minute walking or cycling radius. Welcome to El Ecobarrio 7 de Agosto in the year 2035. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Catherine. Great to have you back. Over to our jury. Let's begin now with Beatrice.
Thank you. Thank you for this nice presentation. A lot of nice visuals as well. So it's quite easy to imagine the project that you're talking about. Maybe I like at the beginning an idea of how big is this area exactly and where it is located and how it is connected with the rest of the city. Are we talking about a sort of island, residential with some like local jobs, or are we talking already about an area that is well connected with other part of the city that is already attracting people from the outside? I think this data would be interesting to have in mind to understand how you want to transform this area. I think it's quite smart also to work with existing initiatives. You're talking about the dynamics around the biking movement, around different things that are already ongoing in Bogotá. So I think this is also, you're not reinventing things, but you're capitalizing on initiatives that are already there. And I think that is also a good thing to make it more sustainable in the long run, to have this dynamic. It would be again interesting to know what you want to have with this neighborhood exactly, because you're talking about tourists, you're talking about locals, you're talking about activities. How do you imagine this area working really in Bogotá? Is it going to be gentrified because suddenly it's nicer? These aspects are not so clear and would probably need to be a little bit better addressed. But very nice presentation again. Thank you.
Sorry, Natalie, we can't hear you. Apologies, technology. Over to Gulnara. Thank you, Beatrice, for the feedback.
Thank you very much, Natalie. And thank you very much for very interesting, very colorful presentation. I really like the future orientation of the project, looking into this kind of symbolic 2035, maybe also after the 2030, when hopefully SDGs will be mainly achieved. I think that when you have a future perspective, it's much easier to engage the stakeholders and really focus on something which is positive. So I really like this idea. I really also liked the aspect of engagement of the local community, and what also Beatrice mentioned about the really building on the local processes, because it will really help to establish sustainable community. Also, visuals of public spaces are very, very important. So it's really very much about people living in the space. So I think this would be really enjoyable community space. This is really, really very important. My question would be, indeed, Bogotá is a very important economic commercial center for the whole country. So how you engage that the whole, this district will be functioning economically, how you ensure there are the jobs, there are investments, the future economic resources that you could support this local communities. Who are the major players, the big companies, national government, local government, who are engaged in this process? So how you ensure this economic sustainability of achieving this district of 2035? Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Gulnara. Great feedback. And finally, over to Edward.
Thanks, Natalie. Thank you, Kat, for for your presentation. From my side, I really like the fact that you to this in 2035, and as Gunilla said, I like the fact that it was a post 2030 agenda. So I think that vision part is very strong, and I think that that horizon also helps people to maybe localize themselves in the plan. I think maybe you could highlight a bit more. This is also what Gulnara said as well. The kind of the aspect of the community ownership and also agency. I know that was also mentioned in some of your documentation, but I think it would be good to show that here in the presentation. You could maybe just highlight a bit of the different ways that you're going to create community ownership and a sense of participation and active participation in this plan. What I do like is that it's iterative, so you have different elements that are going to happen now, medium term and long term. So I think a resident can already anticipate some of the immediate changes, and I think that's a very positive aspect that you've highlighted. And the other thing you may want to also call out a bit more, this aspect of the reusing, recycling, repurposing of existing infrastructure and materials, like car parts, for instance. I think that's really brilliant, and it also cuts across so many of the different SDGs. So I would encourage you to see how in your presentation, maybe to speak to that as well. But thank you.
Thanks a lot, Edward. And thanks for Catherine for your presentation. We're moving on to our two groups for Athens. Firstly, Athens A, presented by Anna and Konstantina. And we begin with Anna, so over to you.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to present Group Oasis. Next slide, please. You may know Greece for its legendary sun and blue water, but today we want to call your attention to the rich and historical soil of Athens. We invite you to visit Kypseli and its main pedestrian street, Fokianos Negri. This neighborhood used to be lively and pleasant in the 1950s, but is currently searching for a new identity. Kypseli today is marked by high urban density, increasing temperatures, social fragmentation, and a local economy severely impacted by COVID-19. Building upon natural and social capital, our unique value proposition is to use the soil capital to respond to the challenges of Kypseli. Athens is developing a new metro station in Kypseli. Excavations will remove over 6,000 cubic meters of soil in Canary Square. And instead of moving all this volume to faraway locations, we propose a circular city model that uses this resource in the neighborhood. As a design tool for green facades and urban farming, our Oasis concept has the potential to be replicated across the city and the country. Keeping soil capital as our focal point, we propose different interventions to improve Kypseli's streets and its polykatekias, the classical buildings of Athens. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Anna. So we designed new entrances and a pedestrian corridor connecting the two main squares of Kypseli. By replacing pavement with soil and vegetation and connecting the uncovered backyards of polykatekias with strengths of mobility, water permeability, and the connection to the city center. With green rooftops and courtyards, we overcome density and promote conviviality to the artists, entrepreneurs, immigrants, and other residents, increasing the chance to build more community links. By plugging in services built from reused waste, we explore ultraviolet light that conventional solar panels can't capture. Thus, we reduce energy demand for thermal comfort, which is the largest burden of energy bills. Finally, in Fokianos Negri, we propose to bring the underneath stream back to the surface, revitalizing a priceless urban natural ecosystem, promoting biodiversity, reinforcing historical identity, and improving public spaces for all. By evaluating sun and water through soil, we generate 21 co-benefits and contribute directly to 5 Sustainable Development Goals. Next slide, please.
Because of COVID, now 60% of Kypseli's SMEs are at risk of not surviving. We propose a web platform to integrate the local economy to a broader public, empowering local business owners. As you can see on the right, layers of cultural richness and multidisciplinary-based interventions come together to improve quality of life, making soil available again and giving nature its real space. Here, citizens are at the core of our project and will be involved through the help of local associations, workshops, and digital tools to better meet their needs. After interviewing local residents and mapping out key stakeholders, we are in discussions to further promote our proposals. Therefore, we ask the support of the International Geneva's network to help us promoting an oasis that can be replicated across similar cities. Dear members of the jury, in summary, our reuse of soil helps Kypseli's residents who strive for better quality of life by improving physical and virtual spaces to enable human connections. Thank you very much, and we welcome your questions.
Thank you very much to Anna and Konstantina. Just a gentle reminder for our audience, if you do have feedback and questions for our speakers, kindly do put that in the Q&A section because the chat might not be seen by everybody. So we just invite you to put your feedback there as well. Great. So over to the jury. Let's begin with Edward. Over to you. Thank you, Anna and Konstantina, for your presentation and for taking us to Athens. I like the emphasis that you've placed on community. That's come out. There's only the emphasis on engaging communities, putting them at the center. You've mentioned also integration of migrant communities. I think that's so important in today's large urban cities. I also very much liked the fact that you linked to the SDGs and called out 5 specific goals that this project, if it would go forward, would contribute to. So I think that is very clear. I did have a little bit of difficulty in trying to grasp the soil aspect. So I don't know if there was a way to maybe visualize that a bit more, because it is a quite striking use of the word and that how you want to create this circular model of soil, moving it from one place to the other, and then also having all of these social, environmental, and economic aspects. So maybe just to see how to unpack that a little bit further for maybe a non-technical audience. I think the addressing this heat sink, I think that is such a relevant topic for Athens in particular. Also with limited vegetation, and also I think you mentioned poor insulation in buildings. So I think that could also maybe come out a little bit more in your presentation, because it's such a big issue there. And then lastly, I'm just thinking the other point. Yes, replication across cities, not only in Greece, but also globally. I think that's really important. How can we replicate? How can we scale up lessons learned in one place and take them somewhere else? So I think that definitely was a strong point that you made. So thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Edward. Over to you, Beatrice.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this interesting presentation. I like the way you structured the presentation. I found it quite clear, well structured. I like also the idea of capitalizing on one event, having suddenly all this soil that is available to trigger some kind of dynamic of change in the neighborhood. And I think this is a smart way to do things. So you have an event and then you try to do something out of this event and try to trigger actions and initiatives around it. I would like maybe to add on exactly what Edward said. It's for me was also a little bit difficult to imagine concretely what you want to do with this soil. So you mentioned different kinds of projects, but maybe we should need to visualize them more concretely. What would that look like? How is it taken care of, and how would that survive during the time, etc. So that part was a little bit missing, I think, from your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, over to you, Gulnara.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Thank you very much for this very nice presentation. I really appreciated the idea of the circular cities, the use of SDGs. It's a very detailed technical study on the environmental resilience side. As a geographer, definitely, I very much appreciated all the science behind that. I would agree with my colleagues, jury members, that probably it would be a good idea to bring more kind of the political and economic dimension of what we're doing, moving from the environmental part into the economic and political. I very much commend you for engagement of the local SMEs. That's very important, this economic component. I really like this layering, also this visual layering, because it kind of demonstrates that you have very different stakeholders involved in this work. And I really appreciate your work with the community that you mentioned, that you interviewed the community as well. What I'm missing is a really stronger political economic dimension of it. Even moving soil and doing this urban planning, you have lots of economic stakeholders involved in this. You have political stakeholders involved in this. So in order to understand how it will be implemented concretely, you really want to see, who are those stakeholders, how will they interact, and how with their support you will make it happen. So I think that would be kind of the main comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you to you. Great feedback from the jury. Finally, we have our last project, Group 6, last but not least, of course, Athens B, Adamantia and Irene. So the floor is yours. Over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. We are very happy to present you our work. To begin, our research area focused on Kypseli of Athens. Kypseli is one of the most historical districts in the city, which has been an intellectual hub for years. Today, it is one of the most densely populated, multicultural, and diverse neighborhood of Athens, also known for the Green Boulevard of Okeanos Negri Street, which is the backbone of its social life. On the other hand, it is also a highly populated and constructed area, characterized by old building stock and extremely density. Because of it, the quality of the street environment has deteriorated with traffic and parking problems, noise and air pollution, lack of green areas and public spaces, issues that make redesigning the neighborhood in a way that can improve quality of life, enhance climate resilience, and social cohesion a priority. Next slide, please. The densely built urban environment of Kypseli consists mainly of buildings called polykatikias. In Greek, polykatikia means multi-residence, and it's a flexible, multi-programmatic building type. Kypseli's main issue is density, but density is not a limiting factor. Dense means a lot, and the Greek word for it is poly. Our proposal aims to turn the current problem of density into an opportunity for creating a new polyscape that combines the ecological factor with the poly factor. Our vision is an ecopolis that can be accomplished through the method of polymaking, which is the progress of transforming an already pre-existing environment into a multifactorial space. Our goal is to create a universe of polymade microclimates within the urban cluster of Kypseli, with spaces that promote more interactive communities, as well as green design and nature-based solutions. Next slide, please.
Polymaking involves a series of interventions which we have implemented into a unified plan of action that focuses on two main categories, the built fabric and the mobility system. Interventions on the built fabric aim for the reconfiguration and optimization of the existing building stock. Part of our idea includes repurposing the abandoned buildings of the area into adaptable communal spaces, upcycling the typology of polykatikia by revitalizing the rooftops and activating the ground floors, and creating superblocks which include vertical battery farms and combine the sustainable character of a futuristic Kypseli and the social activity that it already has. Mobility, which is the linking factor, aims to improve the streetscape with multifunctionality through the provision of high-quality accessible services and urban infrastructure. Polystreets policy involves the provision of additional public space with priority given to pedestrians and cyclists, and the redesign of Okeanos Negri Street, where we utilize its spatial qualities by intervening respectfully, planning to use it as an anchor to foster change in a wider urban scale. Next slide, please. So the purpose of our project is to accommodate the diverse and changing demands of the local community while enhancing the landscape and the public realm within the district. Using SDGs to guide our project, we visualize Kypseli as an all-inclusive, safe community with a greener, more resilient future. Pluralistic realities gain more ground year by year in the cities of the 21st century, a fact that is a challenge but also an opportunity to make cities better. Our implementation plan is based on the financial funding from Greek foundations and sponsors, such as the Onassis Foundation and Stavros Niarchos, as well as the European Investment and the Life Programme of Europe. Through polymaking, we redefine coexistence in the city of Kypseli. We give the city back to the people. Poly, welcome to our Ecopol. Thank you so much for your time.
Fantastic. Thank you, Adamantia and Irene. So to our final group of feedback from the jury, starting with Gulnara this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Thank you very much, Adamania Irene. for this very nice presentation. I really like that you are connecting the key issues of the city with the jobs, homes, and mobility. The proximity of jobs and homes is very important. You are intending to tackle a very important topic of density, really trying to do the kind of the positive, you know, really reviewing this the existing density and making it really more better, you know, providing the better quality of life. I really appreciate it also looking into that you're trying really to do in this kind of very culturally acceptable way for the community. About the financial and implementation part, I would like to hear more about how actually the local community would contribute, local community and local government, because only if you engage the financing of the local community, you will actually make it sustainable, because in the longer term, if you put only the funds of international donors, what is the stake of the local government and local community? You know, so I think this kind of looking into the longer term sustainability, also economic sustainability of the project would be very important, and looking maybe more into the important stakeholders, both economic stakeholders, maybe big companies. Athens is a very big city. So who are the big economic stakeholders of this? I think would be very important to do this additional research. Thank you.
Thank you, Gulnara. Over to you, Edward. Thank you.
Thank you, Adamanta and Irini, for your presentation. I definitely just want to build directly off of what Gulnara mentioned on the financing part. I think that's something that you mentioned, maybe foundations. I think foundations, yes, it's a great source of resources, but in many cases, it's not always sustainable, and it's often linked to certain conditions, and it can also be very polarizing depending on the type of foundation. So I think, you know, where is the municipality, where is the city government, local citizen groups? I think maybe you've done that research, maybe that's part of it, but I think if you're going to highlight the financing, then bring in a bit more of a holistic picture, because otherwise you may alienate some people when you're making this pitch. Also, I think you was probably midway, you restated again the purpose of the project. And at that point, I don't know if it was the same purpose that was mentioned at the start. So maybe you just want to align that. And if so, if there are two different purposes, or there's a higher level purpose, I think just try to be more a bit more clear in terms of the actual, you know, what is the aim of your project? What are you trying to achieve there? But what I did like, of course, and maybe this is something you may want to bring into the presentation, but in the materials you talked about promoting the nighttime economy, related activities, multi-purpose spaces that take on a different character at life at different times in the day. And I thought that was a really strong aspect that you included in the original materials, that I think could help you carve out a little bit of a niche here in terms of your presentation, because nightlife, nighttime economies, bringing people into the streets at night, I think that's such an important element to give that whole 360 of living in a city today. So those are just some points from my side, but thank you again.
Great, thanks, Edward. And finally, over to you, Beatrice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I found it interesting in the way that a lot of seeds and good ideas and good background that we can feel in the project. I would go in the same direction as was said by my colleagues before. Maybe you should put a bit stronger emphasis on what is the purpose exactly of the project, how you want to frame it, and how you want to make it sustainable during the time. This is not so clear yet. Had a little bit of a feeling that is an ongoing project, but it's not really finished for the presentation yet. So maybe get stronger on the purpose and how you want to implement it. I liked the comment that Edward just made before about the rhythms. That's something that we did not so much talk about in the other project. We mentioned it a little bit at the beginning with Reykjavik, with the rhythms with the weather during the year, but I think that the rhythms during the the day, the night, during the seasons. Maybe it's not so relevant in Athens, but that is something interesting that you could include also in your project. You're talking about poly spaces, but poly times also. It's something that is interesting. It could be an added value of your project. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much to our jury members for all the feedback you've given. And of course, a very special thanks to all of our students who've prepared all of this work for the competition and had the chance took the time to present today. So there we have it, all of the 6 groups. We've had a great amount of feedback from our jury, really, really useful. And so our jury is going to head off now and discuss together who they would like to be as the jury selection. But all of you at home and at work are also going to be our jury for the audience vote. So let's put the slide a little bit larger on the screen. And for our audience, you'll be the first to choose and to vote for a winning team. So we're over on Mentimeter. You can use either your phone or you can use your desktop and head over to Menti or mentimeter.com. It's easy to put in Menti, M-E-N-T-I. Or you can also scan the QR code. To get to the site Mentimeter, head over to menti.com, and then you have to put in a code. It's going to be 49506326. You can see it on the screen, so don't worry. You'll be able to vote. We're going to give you a bit of time to head on over there so that you can vote. A kind reminder, in case you would like to use the judging criteria that the jury will be using as well. There are 2 main judging criteria: presentation style, so clarity, as well as structure of the presentation. And then on top of that, presentation content, so the originality of the solution proposed, as well as its implementability. Knowing, of course, that while the students will have been presenting on what is feasible, but resources and things like that have not necessarily been shown today. Great. So we'll give you a little bit more time. We've got a few people voting, 30 so far, so let's leave a little more time. Keep the students waiting. You all did a fantastic job and all winners. And thank you very much to our audience who's voting now, 45 now, and all the great feedback that we see in the Q&A and the chat from our audience as well. Much appreciated from all of us and especially students. I'll give you a little bit more time. $59. Okay, fantastic. I do believe that we're almost there. So we'll just wait a moment longer. Anticipation is building. All right. I do believe we're ready. So let's see who the audience vote goes to. And the winner is Athens Group A. Congratulations. So Athens Group A has won the audience vote. Let's head over to Anna and Konstantina. Do you have anything you'd like to share?
Thank you so much. Really, it was a great journey for us. We are a group of 13 students over 2 time zones and very different backgrounds. So it was really challenging, but also very rewarding. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations, and we wish you all the best for the real competition. So this is our audience vote. However, we also have a jury vote. So before we announce the jury, let's head first to the jury itself for a few words of feedback before we get to see their chosen city. So let's begin perhaps with Gulnara to give your final words of feedback and anything you'd like to share with all the groups before we see your jury selection.
Thank you very much, Natalie. I think that was an exciting event, so congratulations to all the teams. It is really, I think there were really great ideas. I think a lot about resilience, community involvement, stakeholders. I think what is important really to listen to the communities and looking at what are the key issues, because at the end of the day, for people, what is important is affordable, adequate homes for everybody. You know, the issue of homeless, the issue of big families with children, those who have low salaries, you know, and this is not only in the developing countries, it's the same as in the developed countries, but in cities, housing and homes, it's a very big issue. So I think I really appreciated those groups who were looking really into homes and housing, reconstruction of existing infrastructure. Today, we have built quite a lot of infrastructure, but most of it became old, and it's extremely expensive to reconstruct it. So I think this, again, this topic was really important. So I appreciate it in a number of projects as well. Use of land, financing. So I think that was this was also kind of very, very important topics. I also liked for instance, for Bogotá, I really like this future orientation. So I think kind of the future, future orientation really brings kind of community together and also stakeholders together. So I think I would stop at this very more general feedback.
Great. No, it's very interesting to hear your insights, especially from your experience. Thank you, Gulnara. Over to you, Beatrice. Any final words?
Well, thank you, all the groups, because for this very interesting presentation. We see also that there has been a lot of work that has been done all over the semester. I think the results are there. We saw also your text and images before your presentation, so we could appreciate really the lot of work that has been done to do this project. And I think that I've seen many other projects in the past, and I think that you did an effort also to be original in your solution, but also quite concrete. And something that is always very important in project is to challenge your own assumptions, right? I insisted sometimes about the analysis that has to be done. So that means that you need to get out of your own assumption of what has to be done, what it is, what is the reality of a city. And that is really an important work. And based on that, then you can open really the frame for a very innovative solution. I appreciate also the fact that you have been looking for best solution all over the world. I saw a lot of different examples that were mentioned in your different texts. And that is also very important, because we don't need to reinvent everything from scratch. I mean, there are a lot of other cities trying to practice, test, invent new solutions. That was very nice as well. So I had a lot of fun and pleasure to hear your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. And finally, over to Edward.
Thank you, Natalie. I think both Gulnara and Beatrice really summed up a lot of the common points and the strong performance and the great ideas that we were, I think, fortunate today to listen to all of you. I'm definitely quite humbled by the presentations that you gave and the ideas. I think you really struck a chord in terms of talking about inclusivity, livability in cities, and also keeping people at the center. We often talk about keeping people at the center of the 2030 agenda, and I think that's something that you managed to do quite well in all of your presentations. Looking at also vulnerable groups, people that are on the margin of society, I think that's something that you did well, and I would only encourage you to continue doing that going forward in your work, and especially in this competition. And just overall, I think for those of you, like I think it was Bogotá, Beatrice talked about again, this vision piece, take us to this city. when you do your presentation. Take us by the hand, take us to 2035 or 2030. I think that really helps place people. We understand your vision, and also bring those SDGs at the center. It was great to see so many of you talking about specific goals and making the interlinkages between SDG on gender, on climate change, on life above land. So I think great job there, and thanks for having me to participate in today's panel.
Thank you so much, Ed. We're really glad to have all of you here as the jury. So our jury has decided who the winner is for them. So we're going to show on the screen just now who that will be, which group that will be. Let's take a look. Dakar, congratulations. This is our winning group from the jury. So congratulations to Josephine and all of the group. Maybe firstly, do we want to hear from Josephine and then a quick word from the jury as to why this was our winner? So Josephine, if you're there, we'd love to hear from you.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much. We hope you appreciated our vision for Dakar. I presented on behalf of a team, so this goes to all of us. And we've also got students down in Dakar that have helped us, especially map the region and also understand what some of the concerns and the needs would be.
Great, thank you to you and to all of the team involved. It's wonderful that you're in connection with those on the ground in Dakar. It's really, truly wonderful. Our jury, do you have any words to say that might help explain the winning choice? Firstly, over to Beatrice.
Well, I think we liked the clarity of the presentation, the fact that it included different economic aspects, different stakeholders and partners in shaping and making it become true. So I think it was kind of concrete, maybe not the most original in the solutions that were proposed in this project, but still very nicely brought up and yeah, feasible and really working with different kind of partners.
Great, thank you. Edward.
Thanks.
Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just repeating a bit what Beatrice said, but I think it was very clear, the presentation. I thought it was concise. The vision piece was extremely strong, and also the practicality of many of the solutions, I guess, taking into consideration some of the big challenges in a city like Dakar. The presentation itself, I think, was very polished. From the communications perspective, you had this brand, this slogan that was very strong at the start. So I think from that perspective, if we look at the criteria, clarity, structure, originality, I think you did well there. But also, like Beatrice said, not all the others maybe are at the same level as others groups presented, but I think you managed to do quite well on all of the four main criteria.
Great, thank you, Edward. And finally, over to you, Kulnara.
Yes, thank you. I agree with colleagues that clarity and logic of the presentation was very clear. For me, I think the main argument was the implementability, because it was very clear. There was a very clear SWOT analysis, very clear action implementation plan. They were very clearly drawn out as a national and local stakeholders. There was a very clear, comparatively clear, the issue of the employment economic. I also liked integrated approach, the approach of resilience and focus on infrastructure reconstruction. Thank you.
Fantastic. So well done to Dakar and also Athens A, but actually well done to all of you. All of these projects you've proposed are truly fascinating and enriching, and we're learning so much from you. You have so much to give to the world. So we really encourage you to continue this great work. You've all done an amazing job. So thank you for being part of this session today. So we're almost at the end of our session. We'll end on time today. A huge thanks to our students, our partner, the University of Geneva, who we love to work with. Also our jury for taking the time to share this amazing feedback from your own experience and professional experience. We hope to see you soon again at the Commons, and we hope you've had a great time. A big thanks to our attendees who were voting alongside us, and we hope you learned just as much as we did. If you'd like to follow along at the Commons, you can find the slides from our presentations here on the research guide that we have on the screen, as well as resources on sustainability and sustainable development that we have here in the library. So we'll make sure that these slides are shared with you. If we go over to the next slide, you can also keep in touch with us if you like. We are under the UNOG library, so you can find us on Twitter and Facebook. But if you want to come back to the Commons, we have lots of events going on, so you can also subscribe to the newsletter and join us anytime. Great. So we are at the end. Thanks so much for coming, and we hope to see you soon. If you'd like to give us feedback, we would love it. So please email us. We'll show the email as well as a QR code to give feedback at the end of the session. But right now you're going to see the doors closing, but just for now. So we hope to see you soon. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Great. Jury and attendees, we'd love for you to stay for a few minutes. So hold tight.